Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where we aim to inspire and motivate people to never give up on themselves or their dreams. We will chat with highly successful people from all walks of life and discuss what motivates and drives them to successfully attack life head on and never give up. Welcome to episode number 83 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is abundance. Our quote of the day comes to us from Wayne Dyer. Abundance is not something we acquire, it is something we tune into. It is an honor to bring you today's episode. I had the privilege of recording on this gentleman's podcast, and he epitomizes professionalism, hard work, and living an abundant life. I wanted to quickly share the definition of abundant. Present in great quantity, more than adequate, over sufficient. When it comes to making things happen, that is exactly what our guest does, and he strives to help others achieve abundance in their life as well. With that said, I would like to introduce my friend, Wally Carmichael. Wally, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Glad to be here, man.
Appreciate it. So the first question we ask everybody is, are you ready to make it happen today?
Absolutely, always.
I love it. So the number one objective of our show is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never give up. I was curious if you had either a personal story about perseverance or perhaps a challenging time that tested you, but you kept on going and you didn't quit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've got several. One that comes to mind is, many years ago, mid-90s, I was going through Special Forces selection and assessment, and it was something that I really, really wanted in my life at that point in time. And on the final, first off, the whole course is 21 days of the selection process and 21 days of just physical, mental anguish for sure, and teamwork, a lot of teamwork. And on the final event, it's anywhere from a 20 to 28 mile road march with about 80 pounds of weight on your back and a rucksack. And by this time, had already carried a lot of weight, so we got stress fractures in our feet. And about we don't have a watch with us, so I don't know how far, what time it was and all this stuff, but I know we left about midnight. And about 2 to 3 hours into the march, I just felt a snap in my foot. And I knew I broke my foot. It was a done deal. It was January, it was cold. And I walked the additional 5 or 6 hours on a broken foot through sand with the weight. And I actually took my boot off at one point and taped my foot. I had some tape in my bag and taped my foot with duct tape to try to hold it together, and ended up in a cast for 3 months after that. But I made it. I got selected, and it was something that was both mentally and physically extremely excruciating pain. I was like in completely pitch black dark in North Carolina in the woods, and it was like a flash of light, and the pain shot straight up into my left testicle. Keep it clean. And it was just unbelievable, the rest of the march, but I did not want to quit. I wasn't going to give up.
That's quite a story about perseverance and not quitting. I don't know how many people could walk and could have gone for another 5 to 6 hours on a broken foot. So that's just a testament to not only your character and will, but more importantly in the sense to what you wanted to accomplish. And that's something that we talk about quite often on our show, is when you have a goal that you are that determined to accomplish, you're not going to let anything step in your way or stop you. And in your case, 5 to 6 hours of walking and running and on a broken foot was something that obviously wasn't going to stop you. Just a medical question. How did the duct tape hold up as far as for a broken bone aid?
It was more of a mental thing than it was a physical thing. Physically, I'm an Army medic. I was an Army medic for 25 years, and at that point I had been an Army medic for 6 or 7 years. And I just wanted to cast it in some way. But ultimately, when I got done, the x-ray showed that I broke my fourth metatarsal, and the fourth metatarsal was about 30% displaced, meaning the bone was no longer conjoining. It wasn't continuous, and it basically just healed like that.
Wow, that's quite a story, so I appreciate you sharing that with us. To take a different spin on this, you have one of the most impressive podcasts out there. I was very fortunate to be a guest, and I'm not saying it's one of the most impressive just because I was on it. That's definitely a plus for it. But all jokes aside, I think what you do on your show is remarkable. And the name of your show, Men of Abundance, the Pay It Forward community. I wanted to ask if you wouldn't mind, please expanding a teeny bit on the whole Pay It Forward community.
Yeah, so where Pay It Forward came from actually was I was looking for the tagline kind of thing, but it was something that I've lived by throughout my career. And one of my military commanders, his dad was enlisted, and I think he got out. He retired as a sergeant major, and one of his things was always pay it forward. So what he meant by that was when he shared information with his soldiers and any sort of training or anything that would benefit the individual soldier, the last thing he always said was, "Now go pay it forward." Meaning you have to share this information. You can't hold on to it because it does nobody any good. Everybody says knowledge is power, but knowledge is only power when it's shared. So he always wanted everybody to pay it forward, and that stuck with me throughout my entire career. And it just made sense to live an abundant life and pay it forward, because part of living an abundant life in my mind is paying it forward.
No, I love that, and I think the whole concept of sharing it is awesome. And you mentioned if you don't share it, it's almost useless in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's selfish at the very least.
On a side note here, it reminds me of something I read a couple months ago. Someone was saying how the most wealthiest place in the entire world is a cemetery. And I remember thinking, I didn't really understand it. And then in the book, they went into it a little bit further, talking about the reason being is the cemetery has all of those books that were never written, all those relationships that were never started, the businesses that were never formed, the movies that were never produced. And when you think about it, it's the same thing about paying it forward. Is it means nothing if you yourself have the most amazing information if you don't share it with anybody, because without sharing it and providing the knowledge to somebody else, in some ways it's meaningless to anybody else other than you.
Right, absolutely. That's just potential wealth. And a lot of people have potential wealth in their head right now. And when I say wealth, I don't necessarily mean, I don't put dollar figures to that. You've got the cure for diseases in your head. You've got the solution for many things in your head. And until you write it down and put action to it, it's just potential.
I love it. We talk about that all the time. The three facets of accountability are action, application, and attitude. And if you don't take action, it's meaningless.
Absolutely.
So if you had to define yourself in one word, what would that word be?
I just have to use my word, man, abundant.
I love it. If for some reason the word abundant was removed from the dictionary, what would be a second word you would use?
Father.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Father. Yeah, absolutely.
So I wanted to ask you, how do you define success?
I define success, and success for me is what I do for myself. I think it's noble to want to be more in life, and for me to be successful is to be able to provide for my family and be very comfortable. All right, anything other than that is an addition, which is abundance, and then I take success from success being for myself and my family to significance, which is where I share that with other people.
No, I like that. And that's one thing that I've gotten a chance to get to know you a little bit is you're all about the paying it forward mentality, not only with knowledge, information, but you talked about it very specifically and how you define success. And what I like about your definition of success is it didn't have a monetary number behind it or in front of it. And not that there's anything wrong with having a monetary goal, but to me, something we've touched on the show in the past couple of weeks is the importance of defining your success. And it doesn't mean the same thing for everybody, and you shouldn't look to somebody else for their definition of success to become yours. You can take certain things and tweak things, but at the end of the day, you need to have a very specific definition of what success looks like for you. And for everybody out there, it should look, feel, and taste different for others.
Yeah, and Chris, it wasn't always like that. That's part of where this whole abundance mindset came from. In the Men of Abundance, I was in the process of writing a book, Living Your Life of Abundance. And success used to be that. It used to have a dollar figure to it. I wanted to make that 7-figure income, that 6-figure income, and so on and so forth. Well, I was in the 6-figure income bracket, and I was still reaching for that dollar sign, not realizing that the reason why I wanted the money was so that I could live this amazing life. And there I was sitting on the beach across the street from my house with my kids and just living this amazing life. And we're healthy and we're, very comfortable. We're doing what we want to do. And I realized it's not the dollar figure. That's not what it's about. It's really about living how I want to live starting today and stop chasing after that dollar figure. So that's one of the biggest things that I share with guys all the time.
I love it. And I think when you stop chasing that almighty dollar, almost in some ways you get it and then some, because you're not focused just on the money.
Oh, brother, immediately. I'm telling you, I'm literally that week that I made that realization. And I got to give it to my wife, man. She's one of the smartest people that I know. I'll have to say the smartest person that I know because she's my wife. But she is truly, truly amazing. And she always said, Wally, what the hell? What are you chasing? What are you chasing? You got, look around you. And so I'm thick-headed, I'm stubborn, and I finally made that realization. But that week, literally, it's like the blinders came off. And everything that was there for me to see came into my view, and then I started getting introduced to people. Just inherent, it was, you call it divine intervention, you call it the law of attraction, whatever you want to call it. The fact of the matter is, it's real. Once you make that realization that there's so much in the world to grasp that's at your fingertips, all you got to do is open up your mind and realize that it's there. It comes to you.
No, I love that. Now, here's a follow-up question to that is, assuming the 20-year-old version would actually listen, what is the one piece of advice you would give the 20-year-old Wally?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I would say just live. Just experience as much as you possibly can. Because through the experiences, and experience it for what it is at that moment in the journey. Because when you experience things, then you get introduced to different people, different environments, and different cultures, and that just will make you a much better person.
No, I like it, and I think that's important as far as the first part of that question is assuming the 20-year-old version of yourself would listen, because I know for a fact the 20-year-old version of myself would not have listened for more than 2 seconds.
Most likely not.
If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Les Brown. I just love Les Brown. I love that guy to no end. His just listening to him speak, and he speaks from the heart. He smiles with his eyes, and his laugh is just the most contagious laugh I've ever. Just an amazing individual. I absolutely love everything that he's got going on. As far as anybody outside of, the obvious reason, obvious is I love to have dinner with my wife, but anybody outside of my family, Les Brown would be it.
Would I be second after Les?
You would most certainly be. You'd be at the table with me.
So as we're always looking to add value to our listeners, and a lot of them are into personal development, I was curious if you have either a daily or morning ritual that you personally swear by.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You want me to get into it?
Sure.
So immediately, as soon as I crawl out of bed, the first thing I do after flipping on the light is make my bed. That's number one. Every day, all day, unless my wife's in it, that'd be kind of weird. But it's just rude, But my side of the bed's always made anyway, so I'll just make sure my side of the bed's nice and neat, and I really do that. And then, of course, my hygiene type of stuff. And the first thing I try to do, I don't look at my phone, although my phone's my alarm. I have the messages that have come in throughout the night. And just as a side note, my phone goes on Do Not Disturb from 9 o'clock in the evening until 7 o'clock in the morning. But the messages still come up there. I just can't hear them. And then, so I don't even look at that. I go right into my workout routine. I go into the kitchen. I get my tall glass of water, get the coffee started so that my coffee's done when I get done with my workout. Put a little bit of lemon and pink salt in my water. Down one full glass, get another glass. And I usually do my workout right here at home. I like doing workouts like Insanity and stuff like that, or anything that I can do right here, usually at my home. If I'm going to do a gym workout, I'll do that later in the day. And then after the workout, I sit out front, cool down, and kind of just reflect on what's going on for the day. I'll shower. After I shower, I get into my journaling. I'll do my reflection, kind of, I guess you could kind of call it meditation, but I do kind of a breathing technique, clear my mind. then I get into one of my journals. After I get that done, get some work done, check some emails real quick, answer some emails, some important emails. All the other frivolous stuff goes to the side. Check my Facebook group, put a few things in there, and then I'm off for the day, unless I've got some interviews to do.
No, I love it, and I appreciate that. And I've found that some of the most successful people that we've interviewed on this show are the ones that have very specific morning rituals. And it doesn't mean that you have to have 12 steps but it's typically the ones and the people that are very specific in how they do things. So I appreciate you sharing that with our listeners. So I want to now turn the switch a little bit and what we call our hot seat questions. And this is where we'd like to learn a little bit more about you. And the only thing we ask is that you answer with the first thing that comes to your mind.
Got it.
Awesome. So if you were sitting on death row and you had your last meal, what would you have?
Steak and potatoes.
I like it. What's your favorite sport?
It's not really a sport, paddleboarding, but other than that, an actual mainstream sport would be soccer.
Who is your favorite team?
The U.S. soccer team. After that would have to be Panama because my wife's from Panama.
Awesome. What's your all-time favorite movie?
The Breakfast Club.
That shows your age a little bit.
A little bit.
What's your favorite book?
Abundance by Peter Diamandis.
And what is your favorite vacation spot?
I'm living in it, Hawaii.
Now, where were you born and raised?
Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay, so not too far away, and not like you're coming from a terrible weather place as well. So I think you went from a great weather place to an even better weather place.
Well, yeah, that's true, but I haven't lived there in over 25 years.
Well, either way, if you were stuck in Phoenix or Hawaii, I think there could be a lot worse places you could be stuck in. And then last question is probably right up your alley as a former Special Forces member is if you were stuck in a foxhole and you could only pick one person to be in there with you, who would that be?
My wife.
I love it.
It sounds weird, but that's the only person I want to be with.
That question gets answered a lot as far as with either a spouse or a lot of times some of the people answer with the toughest person they know, and the reason being is so they can get out of the foxhole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Other than that, it'd probably be my next door neighbor, who's a Navy SEAL, Steve. So.
Special Forces and a Navy SEAL in the same foxhole. I will tell you that if I came upon you guys, I would leave you as is and I would run for the hills.
Yeah, well, I do want to make one thing very clear. I did not ultimately make it through the Special Forces training. That's another story of adversity and making a tough decision.
Well, the fact that you got to where you were and you got through to that extent is enough. And just the story of going through what you shared on that 5 to 6 miles after you broke your foot, you're in the Special Forces and you're a Navy SEAL to me. So I will not mess with you in any way, shape, or form.
I appreciate that, brother. I'm by your side, though.
Awesome, I appreciate it. So before we let you go, I wanted to ask if you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners.
Yeah, look, everybody's chasing after this big dream that they want, and everybody should have dreams. And I never want to paint the picture that I'm not in it to make money, because I do like making money. There's just an amazing feeling about adding value to somebody else's life in any way and making a living doing that. But ultimately, you got to realize that we live in we live in a world of abundance. There's so much, there's more than enough to go around, and you need to start living your life today in order to really move forward and realize the goals that you want to realize in your life. But don't give up. Don't pass over life today for things that you want in the future. That's what I'm trying to get to.
No, I like that. And last question is, what's the best way for our listeners to connect or follow you?
The absolute best way is just go to menofabundance.com. Everything, all my social media, everything's there. My podcast is there. And for the men only who would like to join the Men of Abundance group on Facebook, just go click on the members only tab at the top of any one of the pages at Men of Abundance, and you'll be able to request access, because I do not bring just anybody into the group. I vet anybody who wants to get into the group. I want to make sure you're there for the right reason.
No, that's definitely true, because I've been trying to get into the group for now 2 months, and I haven't found my way in.
Yeah, well, I think that's inaccurate, but I'll laugh at it anyway.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. And maybe a business idea out there for our female listeners, if somebody wants to start the Women of Abundance podcast or the Women of Abundance website or Facebook group, maybe that's an idea for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Just do it. I mean, the last I checked, about 38% of the visitors to my website, and it's about accurate for the same as far as the listeners of the podcast, the Men of Abundance podcast. About 38% are women, and they are getting something out of it because they're leaving me reviews on iTunes. They're sending me emails. I even had one spouse. She actually sent me a message, asked me to mentor her husband in living a life of abundance or coach, and I was like, it doesn't work that way. He kind of needs to want it as well. But go to menofabundance.com, check out the podcast. Also, we have a fan page on Facebook called Men of Abundance. Just search Men of Abundance and you'll be able to check us out over there as well.
No, that is awesome. And Wally, I have to tell you, this has been a fun interview. I truly appreciate not only your time, but some of the great stuff that you have shared with us. And for our listeners, I would recommend not only checking out your website, but also checking out your podcast as well.
I truly appreciate that, man. I really appreciate your time.
To sum up today's episode in our theme of the day, Abundant, Wally practices what he preaches. Through his incredibly successful podcast and his private Facebook group, Wally is all about helping other people achieve their goals. One thing he spoke about, which I loved, was paying it forward and sharing knowledge with others. Wally is one of those individuals that doesn't just talk about it, he does it. With his podcast and through his Facebook group, Wally helps by sharing knowledge and information with others. In his parting words, Wally spoke about the importance of chasing your dreams and living your life today. So my question to our listeners is very basic. Are you living your life and just getting by, or are you living a life of abundance? The best part about life is it's never too late. So if you find yourself not living an abundant life, decide to change right now, today. Put your head down, get yourself in the right frame of mind, and go for your greatness. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.